Energy good.
Was it?
Oh, I hope. I don't know. It's a box. Perfect. Yes. He has like participants on, so you can see all the people that did.
Presented to Rebecca Peterson in recognition of your retirement, with gratitude for your many valuable contributions to the district. Your 26 years of dedicated services played an integral role in our success. Members of the Wachusett Regional School District School Committee, thank you.
Yay. I also have an envelope that Erica may have with her tonight.
Oh boy. Oh my God, from Kim and Ann Goby. I would like to offer a heartfelt congratulations on your retirement from the Wachusett Regional School District after over 26 years of dedicated service. Your commitment and hard work are sincerely appreciated. Thank you for your reliability, quick responsiveness, and willingness to go above and beyond for the entire Wachusett Regional School District. We have always enjoyed when our paths crossed yours, and it was truly a pleasure working with you. You don't know what we'll do. We don't know what we'll do without you. It will certainly miss you. We wish you the best in your retirement. I hope you enjoy some well-deserved time with your family and friends. Oh my God. What do you think?
They will be delivering an official commendation from the state of Massachusetts for your service in the weeks to come. They were supposed to have it, but the State House was closed last week. So you're getting an official commendation to frame in your home. So,
oh my God. What do you think? Guys? What do you think?
And then I have some words I'm going to try to get through without getting all choked up myself. I've always held the belief that some people are just born to lead, that they possess some special mix of qualities, morals, beliefs that allow them not only to navigate challenging situations, but also to help others do the same. Many times these leaders are vocal. They often are the captains of their proverbial ships, directing their mates this way and that, but other times they are more quiet. They're behind the scenes, balancing the needs of many, offering wisdom, carrying the burdens of their mates, but remaining calm under pressure. Tonight is the last official school committee meeting for Secretary Peterson. Somehow, someone I believe was born to lead. As she retires at the end of the month, I'm befuddled on how we'll manage without her. You see, Rebecca not only answers all of our questions, calls, frantic emails, attends every school committee meeting, and manages the superintendent's office, but she is our calm in the storm. Her dedication to her profession, the late nights, early mornings, replies to emails way past reasonable hour, while on vacation and every day in between is just a small part of what she does. Rebecca bonds us together as a committee, and tonight we thank her. She's been honored by Senator Ann Goby and Representative Ferguson with a special commendation by the State House for her years of service to the district. As a committee, we present her with a plaque honoring her service and her place as our quiet leader. Thank you, Rebecca. I know you're staying on to guide the transition today, but I want you to know that we appreciate you in so many ways. So thank you.
Oh my God, thank you.
And if any other members have a word or two they'd like to say, please unmute yourself and say it. I know many of you have been working with us for a long time.
Having been chair for the last 4 years, like my resignation as chair would have been like immediately following the announcement, because Rebecca was just the glue that really held the committee and the office together. So much thanks to you, Rebecca, and so much that goes on behind the scenes that's really due to her. And I wish you the best with the grandkids. And hopefully we'll see you in a school enjoying a concert soon enough.
Oh, thank you, Ken. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, this is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Okay. Now, Erica said, now we can go back to the meeting.
Oh, yeah, it's funny when I reached out to Erica, and her first question is, well, will mom be home or will she still be at the office?
Yeah.
So she couldn't believe you were at home doing this. She thought you might be at the office until midnight, which I would not doubt you've done before.
I think I've told her in the past I do it from home, but she apparently doesn't listen very well.
Well, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And I know you'll be frantically typing those minutes tonight, but I think you've got a lot of hugs to give in the next month or so, Grandma Peterson.
Oh, yes, I do. They're the best. They're the best. Oh, my God, and I have flowers back here. Oh, thank you, honey. Thank you, guys. She's not. She didn't go to her. I love you. Thank you, guys. Bye, guys. Love you. Oh, my gosh. Oh, they're probably saying hugging and kissing. They're probably, no, they're saying hugging and kissing. Oh, my dumpling. I love you. Oh, my God. Hold on. Love you too, honey.
We'll give her a minute.
Oh, my God, guys. Thank you. That was wonderful. After I yelled at them that, get out of here. I'm on a meeting. Oh, thank you all so much. I'm gonna miss it, but I really am looking forward to retirement. I really am. But I'm here tonight, so let's get going.
All right,
We got-
let's get going.
we
got work to do.
We got kids to recognize.
Yes, we do. Absolutely. So I'm going to pivot right to that. So I'd like to, since we're going to stay on the opening remarks, go to the recognition of the Project 351 ambassadors, please.
Thank you. Is that time for me to speak now? Great. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dr. McCall, for putting that information in the report. I will focus in on the students, and thank you, Chairperson Weeks, for allowing me to be here tonight. Special to be able to see the recognition that Rebecca Peterson is receiving. She certainly is an angel for all of us, and I'm happy for that recognition. Executive Director and founder of Project 351, Carolyn Casey, is proud and honored to announce the ambassadors from the Wachusett Regional School District for the class of 2021. This year's theme is Audacious Hope, and the ambassadors are bridge builders this year. I'm going to jump right into reading about them, and I see them on the screen. I have not officially met them yet. Due to COVID, we do everything virtual, just as you guys are doing. So I think I want to start with Akavla Daga from Holden. I know she's on. I saw her pop on. She is an amazing person, writes her principal. She is actively involved in the Mount View Student Council, School Improvement Council, and is one of the most humble, kind persons you'll ever meet. She is a hardworking student and is a perfect candidate for Project 351. She is self-motivated, interacts easily with others, and is someone who will benefit from being in the program and will also add to the experiences that the other Project 351 ambassadors will have. Welcome, Ms. Daga. Leela Boucher of Paxton exemplifies the Paxton Center School core values of being a respectful, responsible, and reliable person. She is a wonderful young lady who wants to help everyone. Project 351's journey will continue to build her into an effective leader moving forward and emphasize her mark on the world to come. She follows in the footsteps of many dedicated and committed ambassadors from Paxton, and she celebrated her birthday yesterday. So happy birthday, Ms. Boucher. Charlie Doyle is from Princeton. Mrs. Martinez writes that Charlie is eager to learn and progress no matter how challenging some things may be. He has all of the character traits and potential to be a good leader. Charlie has developed skills in critical thinking, collaboration with many different adults and peers, and has developed amazing patience to be a problem solver. This journey of Project 351 will give Charlie more tools to go even further. He leads others through acts of kindness and compassion, such as organizing a sock drive for the homeless because he just felt it should happen. He remains humble and displays humility. Welcome, Charlie Doyle. Jordan D'Amelio is from Sterling. I saw her on the screen there. Mr. Lebrecq reports that Jordan is a member of the school soccer and track teams. She participates in the choir, plays the ukulele, takes part in drama programs, and volunteers to help seniors with fall and spring lawn and yard cleanups. Jordan is the vice president of the student council and earns high honors every quarter. She is the first to volunteer to help a peer or an adult. Her actions set an example for the entire Chocksit community. Her dream is to establish a nonprofit organization that will focus on removing plastic from the environment. Welcome, Jordan. Emma Day, there I see her on the screen, is from Rutland and will celebrate her birthday tomorrow. Happy birthday, Emma. Her principal shares with us that Emma is kind, caring, and always willing to help in any way. She is a member of the Animal Shelter Club and volunteers at the Second Chance Animal Shelter on weekends. Emma has excellent acting and singing abilities and will carry those skills with her into Project 351's program. The Wachusett Regional School District has participated in Project 351 for 11 years. These ambassadors for the class of 2021 will join others from across the Commonwealth to unite, act, and lead. They will meet and work with peers from places like Conway, Eastham, Peabody, Lynn, Springfield, and Toro. At this time, I'd like to ask Chairman Weeks if it would be all right for Kate, a Project 351 extraordinary alumna, to offer her thoughts and advice. And I thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. Kate, where are you?
I would, but I do believe we need to wish Kate a happy birthday tonight as well.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's great.
Happy birthday, Kate.
Happy birthday, Kate.
So for those of you who don't know, I am an alumni of Project 351, and I currently serve on their Alumni Leadership Corps. I didn't think I was going to be emotional speaking about these kids, but I remember being one of you. So it is my great pleasure as a Project 351 alum, proud class of 2017, to congratulate you on your selection and welcome you to begin your service as leaders in the Wachusett Regional School District. I remember as an ambassador attending launch day, a shy 8th grader surrounded by energized alumni. The energy is service, kindness, friendship, love, and compassion that is Project 351. But when I left launch day, on my ambassador year, I left with the realization that service is joy. Though you may not get to attend in-person launch this year, that energy will definitely be felt through the Zoom call and that computer screen. When talking to my fellow alum about our best advice, the most common answer is always to be outgoing. Take a risk and talk to someone. Connections are so vital to your service in Project 351 and your time as an ambassador and well beyond. You become connected with your partnered alum, those who are willing and ready to help you at their beckoning call. They've all been through this and they're so willing and eager to help you. Connect with your fellow ambassadors. The 4 others sitting on the Zoom are probably some of your best friends. That's a great way to start connecting with others. Reaching out to community members. They're so willing to help you. Other members of the school committee are probably another great resource. I also recommend that you connect with mentors. Mary Kringen is probably one of the best ones that you can connect with. The best advice I can give you, though, is to soak up as much as that Project 351 energy you can. That kindness, the compassion, the service, and the leadership I talked about before. Because in the end, you will take all of that way beyond just Project 351. The events you run your ambassador year will shape the next leaders of our district, and you will become the beacon of hope Chair Weeks often speaks of. Know if it gets tough, there are currently 9 alumni actively serving in our district, and they will always be happy to support you, myself included. As a proud alumnus of one of 3,750, I am so honored to welcome these new ambassadors. So welcome to the class of 2021.
Thank you, Kate.
And Mary, to yourself as well, a special thank you from the school committee for your dedication to this program through the years and all the joy you've brought to our community and the type of leadership your program has developed. I think it seems like you and Kate have kept in touch, and she's a shining example of what getting into service at an early age can do to develop a person. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Kate is extraordinary. She certainly is. So thank you and have a good meeting. We'll let you get on to business now.
Oh, did we have to? This has been so nice so far. But thank you so much. And thank you to all our new Project 351 ambassadors. I know you will do us proud. And Kate's right, reach out anytime if you have questions or if there's anything we can do to help. Thank you all. Next on our agenda tonight, we have an update from CPAC.
All right, Megan, can you share the presentation that we had for us?
Yep, just let me get the right tab up. There it is. Hold
Thank
on
you.
one second. Right, just give me a sec. And then, down. Are you guys able to see the screen now?
I can't, but I can check it through a different way.
Yeah, I don't see the presentation.
You don't? Oh, there it is.
And
Right.
point of order, Madam Chair?
Yep.
Malia Gustafson just asked if we're going to have public hearing.
We are.
I
I
just
told things out of order.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so first what we want to do is, this is an overview of the survey that we took. As CPAC, we went through, oh, sorry, you can go to the next screen, Megan. What we did was, we had the goal for the survey is we wanted to gather information, a timeline, the results, and we had a few next steps. Next. For our first goal was that we wanted to capture recent feedback from all stakeholders in the district. This included parents, staff, and administration. We felt it was important that we gathered from all areas and not just from one standpoint. What we did was to understand the unique issues and allow for transparency for all parties. And we wanted to present to you our findings and focus on working to ensure that progress can be made across the district that will benefit all families and staff. Next, please. The timeline was that the survey was done in November 20th through December 5th. We reviewed the results in January, and we are presenting the results tonight. What we would like to have happen is central office and the schools to review the results and to look at recommendations for us and where we can go with this as a team. Next. So the responses we had, 62% of the people that we surveyed got results from were parents, 26% were from administration, and then we had 11% that were both a parent as well as staff. So you can see we had a slightly over 50% that were parents alone. And so we're pretty happy with that. Next. Then we see the breakdown of who per age group responded to the survey. Almost 54% of the people were for pre-K through grade 5, so our elementary age school. 41% were middle school, 27% high school, and 7% post-grad. If you do add those all up, you'll see that it does end up over 100%, and that is because student parents as well as faculty could teach in multiple areas. So you may have an elementary kid as well as a middle school kid. So you would respond yes to both of those age groups. Next. We did ask the role of the CPAC to see if it was clearly communicated to parents and staff. We were curious as to how people felt, if they knew what we did and what our role was in the community. We found that a lot of people did know what we are about, but there were several that did not know what we are about. And so we need to look at that internally and see what we can do to make our role more apparent to both staff and faculty. Next. So one of the major themes of what parents' concerns are here. Social emotional health, over 25% of the respondents noted that they needed social emotional resources. They responded that their students are having troubles connecting with peers and transitioning back to school, concerns about transitioning back to school, routines and adjustments. Then the need for in-person learning. Over 65% of parents said that they had a need for in-person learning. To me, that's a very large amount. And as you can tell, that included frustration with delays in multiple starts, missed communication, and more kids back on IEPs. So the in-person learning, we realized that cohort D students are back in the buildings now. We have cohort A and B who are going in on their collective days. And so we are grateful for those amount of in-person days that our students are getting. But as you can see from the data itself, that there are many students and families who clearly feel that they need more in-person learning and that their students are not thriving and that they need more help and assistance from us. Next. Covent Safety. The students and staff at the high school level all responded that they were concerned about student safety. We thought that was significant to bring up just because the elementary and the middle school staff seemed to be fine with the safety protocols that were in place, but it seemed that the high school staff was very concerned. And so we wanted to note that for you. Consistency across the district as far as protocols being followed. The staff felt that some places were following different protocols than others, and they wanted more consistency. And then transparency of issues with the spread of data. Next. Staff concerns. The biggest staff concerns we had were opportunities to keep up with paperwork. So our teachers and our SPED direct teachers are saying that they do not have enough time in their day with making their learning plans, teaching their students in order to keep up with all the paperwork that they have. They ask for more common time for planning, which I believe is being done during all of the asynchronous time our children are now receiving. I believe there is ample time for planning. The social emotional health for themselves as well as for their students. They wanted more communication from central office and that more staffing was needed. Next, please. Additional topics that were brought up, all of these had more than 20% of respondents asking for these, so we felt they were important to bring up. There's dyslexia screening and the multisensory reading programs. We had a large amount of families concerned about the dyslexic reading screening that is happening in the district, especially with all the younger children who are not able to read and are struggling to learn how to read remotely. There are also many with the reading programs. They feel there are not enough multisensory reading teachers in order to cover the services that the children are needing. Online tutoring for students was a question people were asking. We have the service delivery grids so these are our IEP and 504 kids. Many noted that service delivery grids are not being met. We know that everyone is trying their best during this difficult time, but services are not being met. And an IEP is a legal document that requires that the amount of time be met. And if the amount of time is not met, then complaints can be filed with the Office of Civil Rights. And if free and appropriate education is not being met. So for us, that we're seeing over 20% of people saying their service delivery grid is not met is a huge concern for CPAC, and we will be continuing to look at that area. Another concern is programming for moderate needs children. It seems that we have a great ABA program or we have a great life skills program. However, for those kids who are in the middle, getting some gen ed and some mainstream classes, that the programming might need some modifications. And from the post-grad area, their request was for more vocational opportunities. Next. Support for families was the last area. Families were looking for opportunities to connect with other peers, so maybe a peer-to-peer program or a parent support group so that we can run some of those through CPAC, as well as maybe some grass-fed ones through a Facebook page, perhaps. Next, what we'd like to do is see administration and the schools review the results and consider them in their planning. We want to stay connected with administration and parents to monitor our progress. And then we will resurvey in May the same amount of people and see if we have progress or additional concerns that are happening. And those are what we had for the survey itself. An area, though, that has come up for concern for many families now that we are back hybrid is the reduction of services as far as hours of the school day. Many of our children were back in school and were attending 5 days a week. They are now reduced to 4 days a week. They also have an additional hour taken off of the day than what they were previously attending school. And this is causing some hardship for families. Our families are saying it's requiring the children to do an hour of asynchronous learning, which is the same as what the gen ed students are doing. However, these children are high need children and children who cannot access the curriculum through asynchronous learning. So this reduction in hours is a significant problem for these students. And we have asked that that be addressed and looked at. We did send that request into Christine. And some of the information that we received back was, we want to thank you for helping the district to support all of our children. While we recognize that many of our children in the district-wide programs cannot access the same kind of learning that they can in person, we expect our teachers, providers, and ABA-PA staff to use the asynchronous time as a time to continue to build student skills and increase their ability to review some materials on the computer, in paper, or through communication programs. Some children in the district-wide programs have gained considerable skills in many computer-based programs that are being trialed and are showing growth. Additionally, as new schedules are being developed, we know that some children will be slotted for direct service. Lastly, we are engaged in conversation with the busing company, the para union, and the ABA-PA union supporting children for the asynchronous time at school and the busing program. Lastly, we're trying to determine if high needs students can be expected to work during that hour. As you can see, we are diligently working on behalf of the children, and we want the same. We all want our children to be successful, and the return to hybrid is new. And we want to relate that we did receive that, and we understand that. But as far as parents are concerned, the union agreements are not, they do not supersede the IEP and the contract that is with the state and with the parents. And we would like it to be reviewed and see if there is a way that we can increase the numbers back to the hours that our children were receiving, because they cannot access this curriculum asynchronously. So our children are seeing a detriment to their education. That's what we had.
That's a lot. You guys did a great job. Thank you so much for the presentation, for the PowerPoint, for the survey information. Do you mind if I email that PowerPoint to the entire school committee so they have it as well?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. All right, so guys, I will make sure to get you that information this evening or tomorrow morning at the latest, so that you can hear directly from CPAC themselves. I would find it appropriate not to have an entire discussion, but if you had pointed questions specifically about CPAC's presentation, I'd be happy to take those. Mike, I think you had a hand.
Yes, I had a question for CPAC. I'm specifically concerned about the service delivery hours, I believe, not being met, and I was wondering if you would make any suggestions to the committee on action to be taken to correct that.
We have put in the request that the hours be met. I'm sure maybe Christine has something to say. Perhaps it's a union issue, or why the student hours are not being met at this point. But we're willing to work with the district to make sure the students are getting what they need. But, you know, parents are being educators right now, and we're stretched as thin as we can, and we need all of the help from you guys that we can get.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Christine, feel free not to answer tonight, but circle back to us next meeting with some of those answers. Member Gustafson, just a quick question, please.
Yeah, I won't repeat what they said, because as you know, I've been at their meetings. I just wanted to say thank you. I appreciate the update. I have heard the similar concerns. I'll just let people know. And I've also heard a concern about some people wanting to be in cohort D, being told they was not spaced to be. I've heard mixed things about that. I don't know if that's also came up in your discussions, but it seems relevant to this discussion, so I'm mentioning it.
Okay. Yes, as a matter of fact, I do want to address that. There were some questions and emails that were sent to us, and it was regarding Central Tree Middle School. And what that was in regards to is back in November, a month or two ago, some cohort A and cohort B students were offered an opportunity to go into the school 4 days a week. In fact, and I know this because my granddaughter was one of them. And we had a meeting with the special ed teacher and with Mr. Knarchioli. We were told that this was a temporary until hybrid started in January, and that was understood. Now, with that being said, they are looking into, and they want to be given at least a few weeks. And I was told today by Mr. C that by the end of the week, they should know more. They want to integrate some of these kids into cohort D. Right now, they're recognized as A or B, and they're going to be look at bringing some of those kids in and making them into cohort D. The issue at Central Tree Middle School, and I'm only addressing this school because these were the parents from the school that were asking, is size. Central Tree Middle School is small. It has been small since the day it was built, and they have no room. So reasonably, he needs to be able to look at cohort A students and how many are in there, to bring in a cohort B student to fill those spaces in A, because that would be the 2 days. And the same thing with a cohort B, you have to see how many students are in there. And also with the requests, I guess they are getting that a lot of the remote parents, some of the remote parents want to send their kids now hybrid. So that's an issue, but they are looking into this, and but those were not cohort D students that were affected. It is the cohort A and B. There were 15 or so kids. Like I said, my granddaughter was one of them. I'm grateful for the opportunity they even gave her for that 8 weeks of bringing her in early. She's back to the 2 days. If she's one selected, wonderful. If not, I understand. But I hope that I sincerely hope that the students who need this and need to be in there 4 days are going to be allowed to go in. And after talking with Mr. C today, I really believe that that is going to happen.
Thank you for that update as well. And thank you to CPAC. I think I mentioned at their first presentation that they're going to be presenting to us at least quarterly. So I look forward to your guys' next update. And I do, Secretary Peterson, who is the fastest gun in the West, has already sent that presentation to everyone tonight. So we have your presentation. Thank you. All right.
Can I say?
Sure.
Can I just say one more thing? Rebecca, congratulations on your retirement. I've known you for over 20 years. We started with CPAC that many years ago. I was grateful to you then. I'm grateful to you now. You are an awesome secretary, but more than that, you're an awesome friend. And thank you so much for everything you've done for our district.
Oh, thank you, Tammy. That's so nice of you. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you both. Next on our agenda tonight, the last under Chair's opening remarks. And you guys might notice this is kind of a wonky place to put this agenda item, but there wasn't really a natural place to put it. So this is kind of where it ended up landing. So it's the discussion of WREA statement of no confidence and the possibility of the need to form a task force to look into concerns. So this agenda item was born out of two actions. First was a request made 2 weeks ago with the proper procedures by a community member that asked for this to be put on our agenda for discussion. And second was a similar request made by Member Dennis to put it on the agenda. So since the two requests were so similar, we kind of put them together under one bullet. And so I would open the floor. So this is just a point of discussion. There's no motion attached to this at this point, but open to discussion. We've heard from the superintendent a few meetings ago in regards to his response to the letter of no confidence from the teachers. So we wanted to give the school committee an opportunity to have a brief discussion. Now, again, these are items that we're not privy to, and these are actions that may have occurred during school business hours, but I am open to hearing what you guys would like to do moving forward in regards to this item. Member Dennis, I believe, has a hand. Mike, you're on mute.
There we go.
There we go. Thank you.
How's that? Thank you. So I'd like to offer a motion to refer to, and I can put this in the chat, but to refer to the Superintendent Goals and Evaluation Subcommittee, the statements of no confidence by the WREA for the purpose of investigation, and to make a recommendation to the full committee on a disposition for the complaints.
Can you put that in the chat? I think it's actually exceptionally well worded, so I don't want to mess it up.
No problem.
So there's a motion on the floor to repeat it in general terms until Mike types it out, would be to refer this matter to the Superintendent Goals and Evaluation Committee for further review. I'm going to read the whole thing. So it's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Member Dennis, you're the maker of the motion. Would you like to speak to it?
Sure, I would. So, the reason I asked for this and the reason I make the motion today is that the teachers have reached out to this body on 3 separate occasions in the last few months. The first in September, where they shared with us a poll of their membership that showed that 90% of the respondents were either dissatisfied or very dissatisfied with current district leadership. The second time in December, we received a press release and a statement of no confidence, citing a long-standing lack of leadership and vision. They outlined 19 concerns categorized into 4 standards on the evaluation rubric, and chief among them were concerns over lack of communication, professional development, planning, collaboration, and transparency. And then the third, at our last meeting, Mary Shepard submitted a statement through our public comment process that referred to some of the superintendent's remarks as dishonest and attempting to continue to mislead the committee and the public at large. For the teachers to reach out to us on this body on 3 separate occasions, in my opinion, is an act of last resort. And where else, if not this board, do they go to express this concern? What else can they do? I believe that we owe it to the teachers and to the superintendent to conduct an inquiry and due process for these concerns. And I would implore the subcommittee to conduct interviews, including an opportunity for the superintendent to respond beyond his response to date. And the goal as stated in the motion, is to provide a recommendation back to committee on how we ought to disposition these statements, as well as help addressing a pathway forward. In my opinion, to not investigate this and to not respond is the equivalent of dismissing these concerns out of hand. And for the allegations that are as serious as this, I don't think that's the right path for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Dennis. We're going to go to Member Otmar and Member Pantos. We're going to try to keep discussion brief and just really, again, we're not talking about the allegations at hand. We're talking about Member Dennis's very specific motion. Member Otmar.
So I will add that, kind of as Member Dennis alluded to, especially if we look at when the WRA leadership sent us their 54 pages of concerns, I think that with the volume of concerns that they had mentioned, that it certainly strengthens the case that we would want to be able to take a look at something like this as well. And at least for me personally, one of the things that they had highlighted was a concern for kind of communication, missing information, or even things that just might not have been accurate. And it hit home for me because we kind of, as a school committee, had seen a little bit of that last meeting when we were told that, as an example, talking about the boards of health, who stated that, or we were told that the boards of health didn't have any concerns, or they had some concerns about cases, but they were kind of indifferent. When it turns out that's not quite an accurate representation of how that meeting went. It turns out that at least one of the members of the Board of Health said that, quote, from a public health perspective, they cannot in good faith support the assembly of groups of people, regardless of distancing with these numbers. But as a committee, we weren't told this information. This information was kept from us. And so that the fact that we would be kept in the dark about something that maybe it wouldn't have affected the course of our last meeting, but maybe it would have. And so it seems to follow in the trend of misinformation, just things being left out. And so I think with the concerns that that raises, we definitely owe it to the people of this district to have that subcommittee take a look at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Otmar. Member Pantos and Member Gustafson, again, pointed to the agenda.
Yep.
I actually... Malia, mic's before you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed that. I'm so sorry.
Thank you. I'd just like to, I do support this motion, and I'd like to let it be known that I believe a good portion of the parents that pay attention to the administration and the district as a whole also think that this needs to be discussed and needs to be investigated, and but the teachers definitely brought it to the forefront. So thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Just be careful in speaking in generalities when there's so many parents in the district. Member Gustafson.
Sorry again, Mike. I apologize.
No worries.
I guess I want to ask this through the chair. I guess if we're referring it to a subcommittee, I guess I would be curious to hear the opinion of the chair of that subcommittee. I don't want to put you on the spot, Ken, but I'm curious as to whether you feel you have the time to take this on with all of the other things you have going on and the appropriateness of that.
That's a very appropriate question, Ken.
I mean, I have major process concerns about this motion that, I haven't heard it before now. So, I'd want to hear from our district council. I mean, if this passes, it passes, but I'd want to hear from our district council about the appropriateness of interviewing and investigating and that kind of thing. We're a deliberative body. We make policy, we pass budgets, we evaluate the superintendent. Right. I just want to know, I don't have a sense of scope or outcome of this. There's things in this letter that are opinion, there's things that are allegations of fact. I'm not a private investigator. I have no intention to be one. So I think I would want to talk to our district council before I had a strong opinion to get her take on the appropriateness of us acting in this fashion. That doesn't mean that I don't think we should try and think through these complaints and discuss them. I just, I'm not a private investigator. So
it would be of my opinion as well. And just briefly speaking with our attorney when the vote of no confidence came out, that I would find it appropriate to table this motion to our next meeting and then to run the language by her before moving forward. if someone were to make that
I-
motion, I find it appropriate. I just want to make sure as a committee, we're not doing anything out of our scope of a school committee.
So moved.
Can we
Yeah.
make it a motion to postpone?
Yes. Postponed until what date, Sherry?
Until our next scheduled meeting,
I think it's
February.
2/8.
I don't have it in front of me. I think.
February 8th.
8th. All right.
Yes.
So postpone to 2/8 with opinion of council beforehand. So it's been moved and seconded.
Additional comments be made at this time?
Point of order.
Too late.
Point of order. There are people with hands up. I don't think Member Haber even had a hand up.
Well, she made a motion and it's been seconded, so we're going to debate the motion at hand, which is just to postpone to 2/8 with opinion of council in the in-between to make sure the action is legal.
If you'll excuse me, Megan, point of order. I was only trying to clarify the table versus the postponement as in our previous meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe it's an appropriate motion and it has been seconded. Is there any discussion on postponing to 2/8 to get the opinion of legal counsel?
A point of order. Who made the motion?
I made the motion.
Linda made the motion and Sherry clarified. Hope with some wording. Member Pantos?
I don't think we should be putting off this anymore. I can understand the reason why people are suggesting that, but let's do something.
Okay, thank you. Member Dennis?
Sure. I guess I would want for us to be careful if we're seeking a legal opinion. I heard mentioned that we want to make sure what we're doing is legal. And I think we want to be sure that what we're doing is within the bounds, that we're not intending to do something that we are in a way, perhaps, so Ken spoke about he's not an investigator and don't know the scope. I mean, I think to me, this is the scope is intended to be vague so that we can be informed by the legal process, by our counsel on how best to investigate and propose a disposition for these complaints. So, to me, incorporating that feedback into this process is a smart thing to do. I don't think it precludes us from taking up the motion to refer it for further discovery.
Thank you. Member Lavoie, please.
Yeah, I just have concerns that we're a deliberating body and we don't take direction from an attorney that is looking at the district. So it's more that this discussion has been put off for months, and I would think that the appropriate course of action would be have a discussion either with a full body or referred to a subcommittee. I do, however, have concerns with the subcommittee it was referred to. In prior discussions in full school committee, it didn't seem as if the subcommittee was interested in garnishing 360-degree feedback from others as part of the evaluation process. So my concern is if that wasn't a high priority from the subcommittee, how high is a priority of investigating these actions? I would think that this is more appropriate to have a discussion as a full school committee and part of our deliberation. There's nothing illegal about having a discussion on something that was brought to our attention.
Thank you, Member Lavoie. I have Member Smith, please.
My comments are in line with what Member Lavoie just shared. I don't think that the Superintendent's Evaluation and Goals Committee is the appropriate place for the discussion. For the points that Member Lavoie just brought up about the feedback, it's not that committee is tasked with taking any kind of feedback from anyone other than looking at what the relationship between the goals and the progress on goals and leading the superintendent through that portion of the evaluation cycle. Of course, part of our responsibility is evaluating the superintendent. It seems like this information that has come to us might play a role in our individual evaluations down the road in May when we're making them. So I do see some value in looking at what is accurate and inaccurate. I don't know the best way to do that because although we've heard from the superintendent, we've heard from the teachers union, it's just how do we know what is accurate? I'm not sure, but I don't think the subcommittee should take that alone. It probably should be a full member looking at all that information, full membership. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Smith. And again, right now we're talking about the motion to postpone this to 2/8. Member Brown.
Yeah, I would be in favor of not tabling it, moving the question to our February 8th. I do believe, being the chair of legal, bringing legal counsel and getting their advice on this, I would recommend speaking to both attorneys, Joe Bartulis and Naomi, on this. And because you got to remember, we just came out of negotiations with the WREA on this MOA. So I do believe there's no need to rush on this. And February 8th, I believe we can take it up then after asking a lot of questions to our two attorneys.
Thank you, Member Brown. Member Gustafson, please.
Sorry. I'm still thinking, but I do feel, hearing what's just been said, I do feel like it may be more of a discussion for the whole body versus a subcommittee of, I think, 3 or 4 people. I've lost track how many are on there now, particularly if they have questions about the process. I also recall that we did have similar questions on our own agenda back in August. And we didn't actually discuss them as a committee, but we had the questions to bring it to a meeting, and then it was taken off the agenda. So we never actually had a discussion about our concerns so that the superintendent could address them. We ended up going a different path and taking that out of our discussion as the very first item in that meeting. So I kind of feel like as a committee, it may be appropriate, and it was at one point, to be a full committee discussion rather than a subcommittee, so that we can all hear and share the same information. But I don't know what process.
And remind you, as I reminded Member Smith, that we're talking about the tabling right now. We're not talking about the motion.
Right. Okay. I will say I think it's relevant to that question because it has to do with process and additional information that might be needed. I don't think making a decision tonight is probably the best approach, but I think if we table it, we need to have a specific plan of action. And a direction, and not just getting council's opinion, but a direction of where we might go once we have that. Because I think the fear is that, or not fear, but the risk is that we delay it to the 8th to get opinion of council, and then we have no further avenue to take that up. If it was decided that the subcommittee is not the appropriate pace, we have no further plan to discuss it. And I think that's what I am concerned about, and other people, because we've already put it off once, and we never returned to it. So
thank you. Member Longbelial, please.
Well, I do think that it is appropriate to get the advice of legal counsel before we proceed. And so I do support tabling it until the next meeting. And I think the subcommittee could be the appropriate venue as part of the evaluation process.
Thank you. With that being said, the motion on the floor is to postpone Member Dennis's motion, which is, let me scroll back up, to refer to the Superintendent Goals and Evaluation Subcommittee, the statement of no confidence by the WREA for the purpose of investigation, and to make a recommendation to the full committee on a disposition for complaints. We're going to take a roll call vote on the postponement to 2/8 of the motion I just read. Member Ayala?
Ayala, yes.
Member Bennett?
Bennett, yes.
Member Brown?
Brown, yes.
Member Dennis?
Dennis, no.
Member Gustafson?
Sorry. Yes.
Member Haber?
Haber, yes.
Member Imber? Oh, let's see, Bob. Member Kirschenbaum?
No.
Member Lavoy?
Lavoy, no.
Member Longbelial, please.
Longbelial, no.
Member Mills,
Mills, yes.
Member Otmar,
Otmar, no.
Member Pantos,
Pantos, no.
Member Shapiro,
Shapiro, yes.
Member Silva,
Silva, no.
Member Smith,
Smith, no.
Member Sullivan,
Sullivan, no.
Member Williamson,
Williamson, yes.
Member Woodland,
Woodland, no.
Member Young.
Young, yes.
The chair abstains, and I think we have a very close vote. Let me count this up. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in favor. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9 opposed. It does not have a majority, so it fails. Is that correct, Secretary Peterson?
Megan, I have 10 against.
10 against, so it does fail.
Yes.
So the motion fails. So the motion on the floor is the original motion, which was Member Dennis's motion that we have discussed. So at this time, we'll vote on the original motion, which is to refer to the Superintendent Goals and Evaluation Subcommittee the statement of no confidence by the WREA for the purpose of investigation and to make a recommendation for the full committee on a disposition for the complaints. I do have are these hands new, guys? Sorry, it's hard to go back and forth like this. Okay, Member Dennis, please.
So Megan, just as a point of order, I think that there were some people that had their hands raised before the motion to postpone was made. So you certainly
Well,
made
if you have additional hands, could you put them in now? It's literally impossible to keep scrolling back and forth like this.
Okay, I would like to speak again.
You've already spoken to the motion, Mike, so we'll come back to you when everybody else has had a chance, if you don't mind.
Okay, I thought you just called on me. Thank you.
Member Haber.
My concern with voting on this motion right now without further discussion is I feel like there's not a real plan in place. Member Mills expressed concern that how would we actually do this? Who's interviewing? I just feel like if we vote on it as written, that there's no procedure to go by. So I think that it needs to be, I don't know if it needs to be more specific with someone responsible with a timeline, or I'm just not sure, but I don't feel confident about voting for it, feel good about voting for it without further discussion.
Thank you. Member Mills, please.
I mean, I think we're really a process committee, in terms of developing the goals and getting people's feedback. I think we need to discuss it. I would prefer us let's discuss it as a full committee, put it on an agenda next meeting if need be, go through the point by point of the teachers' concerns, and if there needs to be investigations, figure out how we investigate them. I feel like people are worried about it not going to the subcommittee tonight. I think if it does go to the subcommittee, there's an old phrase of death by subcommittee, right? I mean, we're going to talk about it, and then we're just going to talk about it again at full committee, and it's going to be pretty much the same conversation. Why don't we have it once together instead of separate and then together? I think it's actually more of a delay than anyway, there's that.
Thank you, Member Mills. Member Longbulio, please.
Okay, well, my thought, although Member Mills' statement may have just changed my mind, my thought was that, first of all, I think getting information to substantiate what the teachers' concerns are is going to take time. And my thought was that the Goals and Evaluation Subcommittee would have that time that could be incorporated into the evaluation process that is administered by the Goals and Evaluation Committee. To me, that doesn't preclude the whole committee discussing it, but those are my thoughts at the moment. I may have more thoughts in a minute, but so.
Thank you, Linda.
Yeah.
Member Ayala.
I agree with Member Mills. I think this needs to be a full committee discussion, even if it's a special meeting under executive session. I don't know. It's just throwing it out to a small subcommittee of 4 people, I don't think is fair.
Thank you so much.
That's my thought on it.
I guess, Mike, we can circle back to you. At this point, nobody else is up.
Thank you. So, at the end of the day, I think what I'm looking for is process within, the organization of our committee. And, the intent here was never to imply that there would not be discussion amongst the full school committee. Our process traditionally has been that when we have weighty issues and there is work to be done, we try to delegate that work to a committee to do the work and then bring back to the full committee for discussion. And, in hearing Ken, if he feels like that committee isn't the place to do it, then perhaps there's a small task force that can be put together for the purposes of doing that. Again, I think that the process of figuring out how to disposition these complaints, I wonder how we do that without some smaller committee doing some work to help get us there. And part of that work is probably getting the opinion of our legal counsel and understanding what are the boundaries of what can we can reasonably do. Part of that process might be even reaching out to Glenn Kuchar and understanding what have other similar districts done when faced with these types of things. What are some different options? But that work has to happen someplace. I don't know that the most efficient place for that to happen is with the full school committee. And that's why I put forward, to me, there was a natural connection between the evaluation committee on this type of thing. But if that's not the right place, perhaps there's a smaller committee that can take up this work.
Thank you. Member Brown, please. Linda, I'll get back to you, but Sky hasn't spoken.
I do agree with Member Dennis. We do most of our work in subcommittees on this very large committee of ours. That's where all the work gets done. And I believe if we took this as a full committee issue, it would take quite a while, where subcommittee would get it done a lot quicker. And I do agree that whatever subcommittee, if it is Ken's subcommittee, they should reach out to our legal counsel and ask a few questions, because this is a vote of no confidence. A letter came from the WREA, and so our teachers, our employees. So I do believe, again, it's a serious subject, and that legal counsel should be asked, and it should go to a subcommittee.
Thank you. I guess both Malia and Linda have spoken multiple times, so we'll go Linda and then Malia.
So very quickly, I'm wondering if it would make sense for any discussion to be had in an executive session, as this is a personnel matter.
I would personally be in favor of that as chair, as part of process.
Or at least some opportunity for at least some discussion in executive session, and then also discussion in public. You need both, I think. And I'm a little concerned about creating yet another subcommittee to do this. I think it would be best, forgive me, Ken, for the subcommittee on goals and evaluation to do it, since it's a standing subcommittee, and this is, even if this wasn't in sort of originally intended to be part of their charter, it seems relevant to their charter. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Member Long-Bolio. Malia, very briefly. I can
be brief. It is a new conversation on this motion, which I have not spoken on. So yes, I will be quick. I agree with the general direction that Linda just mentioned. I wonder if perhaps the most appropriate committee, and I apologize to you all because I know you're very busy, but I wonder if perhaps this is an issue that management should be taking up as the first step in terms of determining process, and perhaps management subcommittee could have a separate meeting about that, because I don't want to create extra work for you, but I'm just thinking through the roles, and you all.
No, Malia, actually that makes a lot of sense.
And I'm just thinking through different roles and perhaps determining process and consulting with legal is the first step that you all could do, and then determining whether it has to be executive session or not. I do have concerns about just piling it into executive session because I know contracts are executive session, but performance issues are public discussions. So I don't know the legality of that either. I know we've had that discussion before, but I'm just listening to this. I know you all are very busy, so I apologize, but I wonder if that might make the most sense as the next step to have a special meeting in the very short term and figure out a process if it happens as a discussion on our next meeting or a special meeting close to that, if that might be the most appropriate body to answer some of the process questions.
Thank you, Member Gustafson. I'm going to take 2 or 3 more comments. I think we've gotten a wide variety of opinions on this subject. Member Kirschenbaum, please.
I'm withdrawing my hand.
Thank you. Member Mills, please.
Just quickly, we can't do this in executive session. For the subcommittee, I'm hearing different things from Member Dennis. I was hoping he would clarify his motion for me. At first, when I heard disposition, it made me think we were supposed to come down with some judgment. We recommend that he is guilty or responsible or whatever for this. Then I'm hearing disposition is kind of more of a process thing, like how do we dispose of it? So it's unclear whether he wants us to come to some conclusion about the behavior or just make recommendations for process going forward, because it kind of sounded differently the most recent time he described it. And I apologize, Chair Weeks, to ask a question through you.
No, that's perfectly appropriate. Member Dennis.
So I think it's the latter. I think it's understanding, and again, understanding that there may be some level of interview that the committee may wish to do in response to some of these complaints. But no, I'm not asking for a verdict. I'm asking for what I consider this position to be is a recommendation for a pathway forward.
Thank you. And that's a great clarification. Thank you, Member Dennis. Member Lavoie, please, and we'll end there.
I think one of the things that I'm trying to wrap my head around is we have a letter or a motion or a vote of no confidence, and we've all talked about there are some pieces in there that could be opinion. There are other pieces that could be fairly easily validated with information. And I think within that request, there are those pieces that could be validated with information requests. So I think part of what a subcommittee could do, whether it's management, whether it's the goals and evaluation, is determine which ones of those could be actually validated in discussion with facts. And I don't want to get into the details, but one around PD days and what's happening with those, another around communication about an impasse happening before. I think those are kind of factual things that you actually have a chain of events where those should be valid discussions that we're having as a committee and deliberation as a committee. Other pieces that might be opinionated, those might require some more interviewing. But for me, I don't think that this should be a long, lengthy process to figure out how to do that. I think it's a reasonable eye could look at that and say, this is something that could be validated with information requests. So at the very minimum, what I would ask through the chair is perhaps after this meeting, as we typically do, put those information requests in, and I would expect that those could be responded to in a timely manner. And when I say timely manner, I'm thinking at our very next meeting.
Matt, that's perfectly appropriate, and thank you for that suggestion. Member Dennis, very briefly, please.
Yeah, through the chair, I just want to put a question to Ken, if appropriate. I just want to get his opinion that if he feels as though that the committee that he chairs is not the appropriate place to define process and to do this work, I'll take that and I'd offer an amendment to change the committee and refer it to management. But I guess I'd like to hear from him one last time whether or not he thinks his committee could be the appropriate place to do this work.
It's certainly not the appropriate place to adjudicate, which is the way I took the motion, and I think what the word disposition really means. in terms of offering opinions on the validity or non-validity or doing investigative reporting of it. If it's developing a process to bring to the committee to have a discussion, I think that could be appropriate. I just don't think it's the place where we should be, adjudicating the letter and offering an opinion, because that's really, I think, the role of the full committee to be out. We're not, the subcommittee doesn't evaluate the superintendent. We provide a platform for the committee to evaluate the superintendent. If we're providing a platform and it's appropriate, we could do that and have these discussions in subcommittee. I just don't think it's appropriate us to weigh in with a recommendation of, we think this or we think that about those recommendations. That seems inappropriate for a smaller group to do, to me.
Yeah, and hopefully the question that you asked me and my answer clarified the intention of that remark.
Thank you, and thank you both. All right, at this time, we're going to take a vote to the original motion at hand. Would you like me to read it one more time, or are people clear on the motion? Yes? Okay.
Please read it.
I got to find it now. Okay, you ready? And I'll also put it at the bottom of the chat for people. Hold on one second. So that it is where you guys are looking. Okay. Do you have it now? To refer to the Superintendent Goals and Evaluation Subcommittee, the statement of no confidence by the WREA for the purpose of investigation and make a recommendation to the full committee on a disposition for the complaints. We're going to have a roll call vote. Member Ayala.
Ayala, no.
Member Bennett.
Bennett, no.
Member Brown.
Brown, no.
Member Dennis.
Dennis, yes.
Member Gustafson.
No.
Member Haber.
Haber, no.
Member Kirschenbaum.
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Member Lavoy.
Lavoy, yes.
Member Longbeliel.
No.
Member Mills.
Mills, yes.
Member Otmar.
Otmar, yes.
Member Pantos.
Pantos, no.
Member Shapiro.
Shapiro, no.
Member Silva.
Silva, yes.
Member Smith.
Smith, no.
Member Sullivan.
Sullivan, no.
Member Williamson.
Williamson, no.
Member Woodland.
Woodland, yes.
Member Young.
Young, yes.
Let me tally that. It's close again. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11. And the chair abstains again. That's 11 no's, so the motion does fail. All right. What I'll do in the in-between, guys, because I do believe there's a lot of validity to this, I do have a management meeting later this week. It's not on our agenda, but I can get it on a future agenda, and I will do some diligent homework over the next week through Glenn and through our attorneys to what the best path forward may be. So look forward to hearing from me by the end of the week on some of these matters. Next on our agenda tonight is public hearing. We do have 2, I believe actually 3 public comments at this point. So thank you to the
And Adrian, can I ask a question on the last agenda item?
We're moving on, but go ahead, Matt. I don't mind.
Yeah, I just want to ask, would it be okay to still submit information requests related to that? So
I will do that as well. So I'll have 3 homework items. I'll go through the list and find the factual things to get that information. I'll speak with Glenn and I will speak with our 2 attorneys.
Thank you.
Not a problem at all. All right. So again, thank you for the public agreeing to use the new form on the website. It is going very well thus far. And so I have 3 comments so far tonight. The first comes from Keith Levine at 135 Meadowwood Drive in Holden. He states, Members of school committee, I'm writing regarding the COVID cases at Dawson reported on the very first day of in-person school. Perhaps the most important safety precaution that we require for in-person instruction to be successful is a combination of trust and community effort. All the physical distancing, masking, reduced class sizes, and cleaning will undermine if community members can't be trusted to share in the act of protecting the community. Positive test results were reported on the same day Dawson welcomed students back. Without greater transparency, we're left to speculate as to why individuals had, 1, tested previously and were awaiting results, 2, were feeling ill enough to take a rapid test, or 3, had been close contacts, made the decision to go to school. The district and school committee need to create an environment where community members can be trusted and relied upon to participate in the shared endeavor to keep our schools open. Next note from Gertrude at 47 Courtney Drive in Holden. There have been 8 cases since the reopening of school. There's a certain number of cases that have to occur before the district pivots back to full remote. Finally, this evening, from Carrie Noring at 30 Coventry Road in Holden. Good evening. I'd like to start by thanking everyone involved with the transition to hybrid who are doing their best to make this work for our students. I have a 5th grade student at Dawson, and I'm concerned about the number of cases that have occurred since the start of hybrid. We seem to be 7 positive cases, a significant amount of staff in quarantine. I trust the staff there implicitly. My heart goes out to them because it must be very stressful and scary. I'm curious to know if 6 feet spacing is being encouraged by the district or 3 to 6 feet. I'm concerned about the number of close contacts and don't understand if there's so many protocols. I'm concerned about proper staffing levels as well. I hope the district administration can comment on the plans of keeping Dawson safe for students and staff. And that's what we have for public comment so far this evening. If there are public watching out there on YouTube or Holden Cable TV, please feel free to use the form on wrsd.net, and there'll be a second public comment session at the end of this meeting. Finally, tonight we turn to the birthday girl, Ann Kenichi, for your student reports.
I can go first. So as you all know, we returned to school this week, and the in-person learning aspect of hybrid. It's been going very well. Principal Viendo reported being very excited to have students back in the building. We had juniors and seniors there to help us find our classes and make sure everything went very smoothly. The one thing we are hoping to have is more kids ride the bus in order to speed up the drop-off and pick-up portion of the day, as we have a lot of students either driving to school or being parent drop-offs. The other thing is that we had our student council make care packages for our teachers. They included masks, hand sanitizers, expo markers, and then a thank you note on behalf of the student body. And we were able to give some of the leftover masks that were purchased to the kitchen staff or the custodial staff there at the high school. So we were able to provide some more masks, which was very nice. And then they were also able to put up welcome back posters to welcome either the new freshmen into the building or the other students into the building. We have some clubs going on.
Kate, you're a little quiet tonight. Rebecca, you actually are off mute and you're typing.
I am sorry.
No worries.
Sorry, I can talk louder. We had one of our clubs create a beautiful tribute to MLK that I just wanted to mention, the Wachusett Art Collaborative, and they have an Instagram and a website that you can find all of that stuff on. Our winter sports have been going very well, and then we started doing announcements videos since the last meeting, and so we've had teachers compete in lip sync battles or name that tune battles in order to add just a little bit of hope to students' days, and it's just a good morale booster. So it's been very nice. And then we did want to say thank you to Madam Secretary for being so helpful to us this past 6 months. I remember when I was appointed this position, I texted Rihanna Masoni-Nesman, who was last year's rep, and the first thing she said was, reach out to Rebecca. She will be so helpful. She'll answer any questions whenever you need them. And she's truly embodied that. So I do want to say thank you to Rebecca and on behalf of everyone. So thank you.
I want to say thank you to Rebecca as well. She sent us many resources to put on the WRSDC Student Reports website, and all of the invite links for all the Google Meets. Thank you very much.
Oh, you two are so sweet. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Catherine, and thank you, Kenichi. Next tonight is the superintendent's report. Does the superintendent have anything he'd like to highlight from his report this evening?
Sure, Chair Weeks. First and foremost, Rebecca was the very first person I met when I interviewed in this district back in 1999. She was a special education secretary in Princeton when the central office was at what's the name of the post office place. So she was just so nice and sweet and kind, and she has been the same way ever since. So she is going to be sorely missed. The great thing is that she's agreed to stay on and help transition a new person, when that person starts. So we're excited about that. And I think she's really excited to spend time with her husband and the many grandkids and children that you saw earlier today. So thank you, Rebecca. You've been a great friend and just a great partner over the past 6 years as superintendent, and then prior to that as deputy superintendent and so forth. So thank you.
And I'll see you in the morning, Daryl.
Oh, you're still coming in. Okay. Yes. So I just wanted to go through a couple things with you. So I can tell you the first week was a good week in terms of getting the kids back into school, busing. You can't even imagine how excited the kids were to be in the buildings. It was phenomenal. Teachers were excited, administrators were excited. So that was a strong part of the week. As we kind of looked at a couple different things, we did have one small cohort of students in a program, not students, but of people in a program where it has, we ended up having some COVID cases, and they were confined to the program. But again, one of the things that happens in that situation is that, when we talk about that, we talk about it as a school versus a particular program or grade level or so forth. So again, we'll try to figure out a better way to do it. We've spent a lot of time looking at other dashboards of other school districts who have been open already for a while. So we've taken a look at those, and again, most of the information that we have that we've already put out there looks an awful lot like what they put out as well. So possible in-school transmissions at the district level, but not necessarily school level, or again, the total amount of cases that have been reported as positives. So again, we met with our boards of health today, and they've been doing a fantastic job. It was a little disappointing, and I don't know if you heard Governor Baker's remarks today, but it doesn't look as though we're going to be moving too quickly into getting our staff vaccinated, or not as quickly as we had anticipated at least a week or two ago. So there's a shortage at the national level that's trickling down to the state level. Even though they're ramping up phase 2, which is the phase in which educators fall under, and that's everybody in a building, basically. Even though that starts on Monday, it's probably not going to be rolled out until everyone in phase 1 gets covered. So that's one of the really important things that we have to remember. The other part, the other thing that I've been focusing on has been the Binex testing, which is I have a webinar on that tomorrow. But I did sit through a webinar on Friday that was conducted by Russell Johnston, who's the Associate Commissioner of Education, just talking about the pooled testing. And I know I talked about this, I think, at our last meeting. They've finally come out with some more information on pooled testing. I can tell you it's a little more challenging in terms of personnel and so forth. So what we're, it's kind of a multi-stepped approach. So what we'll do is we'll be working through this over the next couple of days, working with DESE around, how this might work, who might be able to do it at our level. There is the capacity for districts to actually, for the first 6 weeks, the state covers the costs. And then after that, we can actually contract out with one of the 3 companies who are providing the services in terms of collecting the swabs, collecting the information, gathering information, contact tracing, doing the follow-up testing for any positive cases, or positive cases based upon a vial of 10 to 25 swabs. So again, that's something that we're looking at attempting to do. We may end up trying to do it by a school, starting with a school at first, to see how it works, maybe the high school. But again, we'll see as more information comes out from DESE. But we're excited about the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Dr. McCall. At this time, I will take questions from the school committee in regards to the report. I do have one question. I think Ken is going to be the man of the evening. Are you planning on discussing the superintendent's mid-year goals report during your subcommittee meeting, or would you like to discuss that here?
I guess that's the question for you, Madam Chair. That was one of my questions I would have when you got to me, is when you want to take those. I would suggest that you either bin it now and do it, those questions, then other questions, or put it to the subcommittee time, whichever you feel.
I was hoping to keep it in the subcommittee time so we can keep that discussion focused, and then keep this discussion broadly to the report at hand, if that's okay with members. If there's no objection. See, I learned that tonight. Okay, great. Matt, I do believe your hand was up, though. I don't want to miss you.
Yeah, I just have a couple questions and comments for Dr. McCall. First is more of a, hopefully you can talk to this. You and I had a conversation earlier this week about perhaps increasing or having an outreach for substitutes to help with the staffing shortage. So if you could address that. But I also wanted to ask a question on COVID vaccine. So everything that I've seen from the state has phases, but there's also prioritization within those phases. In your conversations with DESE, with the powers that be, it looks like phase 2 teachers are prioritized below individuals that are 75 and over, also below individuals that are 65 plus with 2+ comorbidities. And then there's this large group of other workers where teachers fall in. Has the state looked at prioritizing teachers in any capacity within that? Because my fear is that you're going to have this extended time frame of February to April where it's just not going to be possible for everybody to be prioritized at the beginning. So could you address any conversations you've had in regards to that?
Sure, Matt, those are great questions. First and foremost, around the substitutes. Substitutes in schools at all levels, paraprofessional, custodial, ABA, whatever, teachers, in particular nurses, that's something that all districts are facing in terms of shortages across the board. I can tell you that we have, Jeff, is it 13 or 14 permanent subs, Jeff, that we put in so far?
Currently, we've added 16 building substitutes, and we have more in the pipeline.
Okay, thank you. So, again, putting those permanent subs into buildings has allowed us to kind of, move people around, where we're starting to, run into issues, is that if someone is a close contact with their spouse, with their child, maybe, not necessarily in school, but at home, they end up having to either be remote, and then we have to figure out, okay, how are we going to cover the class? Can we cover the class doing it that way? So, I also, I know Jeff is being very active in posting for substitutes, and I put it out in my weekly newsletter. We are going to be sending stuff out through building principals, again, through to families directly. And, we'll reach out to our colleges and universities locally to see if we can get some of those people back in. In terms of prioritizations, you're right, Matt, they fall down. And what was interesting about what was talked about today with the boards of health was that there were some communities that have been able to kind of blow through, they've gotten through almost all of phase 1, and they're like, hey, we're ready to move on. But they put the brakes on this last week. DPH did back, I think, on Monday or Tuesday of last week, maybe even Wednesday. So when they did that, they basically said that anything that was going to go out had to be, follow that chronological order associated with how they phased it in. So they do fall below other categories, unfortunately. Teachers, and it's not just teachers, it's everybody in a school. So we talked about that today with the boards of health. I know that they have been disappointed because, for example, Rutland had ordered 3,000 doses last week, and they were told today that they can only get 975 a week. And again, there are, I believe, 10 or 11 communities that are working with Rutland because they have a freezer, and it allows them to, keep the serum at that cold temperature. So I don't see it happening. I thought it would be quicker. I mean, if you were to ask me, a week and a half ago, the way it was moving and the way we started to see it, there were a lot of conversations about, hey, we're going to be able to use the school to do this. We'll be able to hit the teachers up here. And the state has put the brakes on it. So it's a state level issue. And it's probably a national issue because they've not produced enough vaccine for it to be out there for the states to then distribute adequately.
Thank you for that answer. So I have Member Pantos, Member Haber, Member Ayala, and Member Longbilio. So let's go, Member Pantos, please.
So, quick question. Well, two quick questions. One is, do you have any idea? I know there were some comments made from parents about the class sizes. Do you have any idea of what the average class size was like in any part of the district?
No, I know. I can't.
Smaller than expected.
Yeah, I didn't pull average class sizes right now, Mike.
Okay. Is that something I would request and you'd be able to get for me?
Yeah, we could do that.
And the other thing was, I was wondering if you could comment on the concern of service deliveries not being met that was made earlier in the meeting.
Well, it was something that Chair Weeks said that Christine would come back around on. So I'd be happy to kind of talk with Christine about that ultimately. We want to make sure that we are supporting all of the IEPs when, as best as possible, to its fullest requirement. So again, it's something that they're spending an awful lot of time working on. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Dr. McCall and Chair Weeks, may I respond?
Absolutely, please.
I think it's very important, and I have said this repeatedly at any meetings, that if you don't feel like you're getting the service that your student is requiring, that you reach out directly to your team chair and make that known. We are providing minutes through the direct services and through asynchronous services. So please be in touch directly with your building leadership. Always I'm available, but please go through your building to make sure that they can solve it on the ground for you and with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, thank you.
Member Haber, please.
Thank you. To the discussion of the dashboard, you said that you guys were looking at other communities and that we were kind of at par. I had sent Director Keenan last week a copy of Northborough Southborough's dashboard. They're in a little bit of a different circumstance because they have been in person and they have been doing testing. So I understand that when I asked at the last meeting how we could get numbers closer to their, or charts information closer to theirs, it wasn't practical. Now that we are back in buildings, we certainly know what absences are like when students are having to quarantine, and definitely teachers. If they're close contact because of contact in school or at home, those are numbers that we can certainly provide, I think. Anyway, I don't see why we can't provide them.
Sherry, can I just jump in?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I actually looked at that as well. The Algonquin, Northborough, Southborough COVID site, and they do show, if they're a close contact athlete and they're out, if they're a close contact. So again, they differentiate it a little bit. They actually, it's interesting how they go into students a little bit more. We don't merge, it's students and staff. They're one and the same. So I want to make sure that they're not, we don't do anything we're not supposed to do in reference to highlighting someone that has it or a possible case of it, and we're violating their rights. So we want to look at that as well. We looked at that today.
Yeah, I'm not specifically even talking about cases at this point, but more about quarantine. There's information going around about Dawson that you mentioned. They had a number of cases, but it seems like they also have a very high number of close contacts, or we would assume, because we don't have that direct information, where it's being said that 19 staff members are not in the building. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but it would be nice to know. But without that information, we have nothing
Sure.
to go
Yeah.
against.
What we can do, and I think Malaya had reached out to me, and Linda Woodland as well, member Woodland, just about, okay, is there a way for us to get some more information pertaining to people, members of the community that might be COVID positive, members of the community that might be, on a close contact, so they have to be quarantined. Again, we will look to see how we can do that, because again, I think that will help pull things together. There's a question around, if there was a cluster of kids or staff or whatever who ended up getting something, were you following the 3 to 6 foot rule? And I can tell you in some of our programs where we have students with severe special needs, it's a challenge, and staff overlap quite a bit, and oftentimes they're in somewhat tight spaces, even though we try to spread out as best we can. So that can be something that can occur.
Thank you for the questions and your answers. We're going to go to Member Ayala.
Hi. All right. I know we're not on the goals and the superintendent's goals and evaluations, but
we're gonna spend time on that later.
I know we are. I think the point I'm trying to make is more towards the smooth transition that the hybrid kids had. Dr. McCall mentioned in his goals for that we need an equitable learning experience. In regards to the full remote learning, the cohort C, I have to advocate and be a voice for cohort C, because I feel like they're being left out in this quote unquote smooth transition. I need to express disappointment in regards to the first week transitioning to hybrid learning. In voicing disappointment, I want to know I don't hold any teachers accountable for the way they had to implement the schedules to acclimate the hybrid kids. I don't find them at fault whatsoever. They were told by administration what to do. The committee had asked several times for a clearer picture of what the cohort C schedule would look like. I understand that most families that chose hybrid, they get a choice. They heavily advocated to get into the buildings. However, some of the kids that are in remote have no choice but to be in remote due to health problems. My remote student had no choice. Last week, some kids had no live teaching out of the 4-day week. 2 days, my son didn't have live teaching. Not even a quick live hello. I don't find this equitable. I know this was only 1 week. There is no live specials in some of the schools. They have to do a video. My student didn't have his aid because she had to do buses. It was against his IEP. I would write emails, but I don't get responses all the time, as other parents, I'm sure. So it was 1 week. And I understand the teachers had to get everybody acclimated. I get it. I just have to make sure we have an equitable learning experience for all remote children, because some don't have a choice but to do full remote. They have no choice. Whereas I know a lot of hybrid families just wanted the choice to go into school. At least they have that. But I don't think we're having an equitable experience for cohort C.
Thank
How
you.
can we
Thank you,
fix this?
member.
Thanks.
And Melinda, if I can just, come back a little bit on that. Again, I apologize if there was, I'm not sure why there would be there was just like one time where there was any in-person kind of connection whatsoever. That goes against everything that we've been talking about with our principals, with our teachers. So that doesn't, it's not jiving well with me right now. So, we definitely need to address this. And again, I had heard about the related arts being taped. I did not know about that. Deputy Berlow and I will go through that. We'll take a look at this with our, again, we have a meeting with our building principals. My question is, are you A or B in terms of cohort?
I'm C.
I'm sorry. But like, so you're doing your full day Tuesday, half day Wednesday, or full
no,
day.
my son is cohort C. He's full remote. He's
Yep.
not in person. The cohort C is what I'm talking about.
I'm sorry.
this
Yep.
time. Yeah, not A and B.
Yep. Okay.
From what I'm hearing is A and B is doing A-okay as long as they're in person. Cohort C is the one I'm talking about.
Yep. And so what we'll do is we'll go through, because again, the cohort C time that goes along with the same time as A and B in terms of the 10 days.
When they're home, yeah.
Yep.
I don't know what I'm guessing A and B followed with C in suit when they weren't in school, but at least they had time with their teacher.
Yeah.
It was, like I said, I do not blame teachers. They were told from administration what to do. I don't find this equitable though. And I know other parents
Yep.
can relate. I don't know why we don't have emails from them. Maybe they're just assuming that this was only 1 week, but I find it unacceptable, even 1 week.
Yep. I mean, one thing I can tell you is that it's a huge transition for them, for teachers, to go from full remote for so many months to in-person and remote. So we knew there were going to be some bumps, but again, we want to ensure that kids who are at home have equitable opportunities in the same way as the students who are in person on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday.
Thank you both, and thank you for bringing up that important point. Member Longbalil, please.
Yes, some of my questions have been answered. When we surveyed parents several months ago about their intentions, about 5,100, I believe, said they wanted their kids in hybrid. Are the number of students that we are now seeing in our schools in hybrid what was originally anticipated at that time? Is it lower? Is it higher? Do we know yet? What's the status now?
Yeah, so it's about 70%, 30%, Linda. I can tell you there are modifications that are made on a daily basis in terms of kids moving, out of maybe in person into remote. So we're still looking at that. We'll probably have a much better idea by Wednesday, because we'll have gone through a full cycle of B, a full cycle of A, after Tuesday.
Okay, so is it less or more rough? Well, you'll know by Wednesday whether it's less or more than the kids that were anticipated to go in when we originally asked. You don't know yet is the answer. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a little more. I know at the high school it's a little more, but then at other grade levels it's a little different. So
right.
I can tell you 11th and 12th grade, it's about 50-50.
Okay. And I do hope you're able to provide us with more information about infections, et cetera, that in the schools, and understanding how they occur, so that we can try to prevent that going forward. So yes.
Yeah, so I can tell you, I'll never be able to to kind of say, hey, this is how an infection happened. But and again, what we have to be careful about is how we share information pertaining to this, and that is something that it gets drilled into our heads by DPH and by the Board of Health and by DESE, that you have to be really careful with the information that you share and how you roll it out there. So again, we'll be careful.
I mean at a high level. I don't mean.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things that we'll do, and because originally I was sending school committee an email saying, oh, there was a case at Central Tree Middle School and, involving someone in the community, and we're looking at all of our close contacts right now. As we kind of go through this, what we're going to do is just update the COVID dashboard so that that's just ready to go. So that way I'm not sending you an individual email each and every time there might be a case coming up, because we don't know how that's going to roll out moving forward. We might have more, we know numbers are going down across the state right now. So this is good news. But again, it would be even better news if we were to get those vaccinations done a little faster.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you both. Member Woodland, please.
Hi. So I want to echo what Member Ayala talked about, because that was exactly my experience for one of my cohort C students. And I've talked to you about that. Just the fact that you asked her after she went on about the remote only, asked her if her kid was in cohort A or B, is so emblematic of this entire problem, where remote C is just never talked about in the school-wide emails that we get. Remote C is not even mentioned. And so that needs to be addressed from the top. These kids who are staying at home, again, a lot of them don't have a choice in the matter. And I know that that's what the proponents of hybrid were talking about in the fall, that they just want to have a choice. But the thing is that when hybrid is enacted, this was what I was afraid of, that things that were there for all Wachusett students, access was available to all students, even if there are always individual circumstances, there are always things beyond that. But there was the access available, and now access has been taken away from remote C, cohort C students, and that is the issue that needs to be addressed. I just want to point that out because I really feel it's about 1/3 of our students are in remote only. 1/3 of our students is a pretty sizable amount, and they are getting ignored. Not by the teachers. I want to really emphasize that the teachers have been amazing and doing what they can within the limits of what they're directed to do. What I actually really want to focus on as well, though, and would like an answer to, if you can, if not tonight, can you, on a weekly, regular basis, put out at minimum to the committee, if not to the public, the number of people who are on quarantine, meaning the number of people who would have been in the building in a given week, but are not due to COVID, either positive quarantine exposure, whatever the case may be. Because that, I think, is the biggest way that we can keep track of the disruption, impact, or lack thereof on our school buildings. And that number of people who should be in the building but are not due to COVID in some form would be very good information, so that we know that we are keeping our community safe as possible. And then the last part that I would like a response on too is that when will we have an update on the educational impact of moving to hybrid, and not only on the hybrid A and B students, but also the C and D students, of what hybrid is doing educationally? And I don't know if that falls under the purview of our consultant, Mary Mead Montague, or elsewhere within central office. We were meant to be getting weekly regular updates from the consultant, and I think we've had maybe one in the several months since hiring. So those are the two updates that I would really appreciate getting. Thank you.
Sure, Linda. So as I mentioned to Member Haber, we should be able to put something up there around the quarantining in reference to the overall number. Were you also talking about the students as well, Linda?
Yes, that would be good to know. I think that the staff numbers are what's going to disrupt the business of having a school going. But to also have the students who are out on quarantine would be good to know as well.
Yep, definitely. Okay, and then we will we'll give you an update on the process going along with both remote and hybrid.
Thank you very much. Member Silva, please. We're going to have, I think we have 4 more in here, and I think that would be a good place to move on. So Member Silva, please.
Yeah, that was my concern too, the same concerns as Member Ayala and Member Woodland. I just wanted to share that I've even heard, a student say, all I had to do was log on, and the teacher was unfortunately had to have our attention with the students in class versus the students who were on Zoom or Google Classroom. So that concerns me when students don't feel heard or just feel as if they're passed over, because it's natural, right? When you have people in front of you, you're going to, naturally speaking, be more cognizant of what the students in front of you are doing versus online. So one suggestion I would, and I don't believe the teachers are doing this on purpose, but I believe that maybe if we can use some lessons learned from other districts or other teachers who have done this very successfully, share tips and tricks of maybe, recommending to the teachers, check the online students maybe every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, whatever works for their schedules, so that it's almost like checking in every so often to make sure that they are paying attention to the kids who, as Member Ayala said, don't have a choice. Sometimes they had to be remote. And so I feel that, and this was the same concern I've had from the beginning, as I had asked in our last meeting, how can we be sure that our remote C students are also getting our equitable education? And that's a big concern for me also. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Silva. We have Member Dennis, please.
Thank you. So I have two items. The first one, I thought maybe I was the only one who didn't know the answer to this question, but perhaps not. And so the question is, how is the state requirement for minimum live instruction for remote students being achieved? Because I know that we had some questions around that 2 weeks ago.
Member Dennis, just to clarify, it's for the district as a whole. It's not for your in-person students and your remote students. It is if your district as a whole is remote, there's a different number of hours.
Yeah, no, my question is, for those remote students, how are we ensuring that they are receiving the minimum number of live instruction hours?
So our whole goal, again, the first, last week, getting kids into the building and so forth, having kids at home continue to receive some type of information in terms of, direct instruction and so forth. I think, and again, this was something that, we explained. It was not going to be the exact same thing. We knew it was going to look a little different for those kids in remote. At least the first week, we knew it was going to happen because there's a transition. You're exactly right. You're going to have people in front of you. You're going to have kids at home. So what we're doing is we're looking at the times in which teachers are working with those students as well as the students in person. So there's times when the principals are, checking this and making sure that it's happening on a regular basis. This will become more regular. Again, we're only in our 4th day of, true in person right now. So, again, we want to make sure, and I think several people have said this, the teachers are doing a great job. They're coming in. We don't want to forget about C. We know that that's not, we have, and Linda mentioned this, it's a third of the students. So again, what we're doing is we'll be, kind of quantifying, okay, how is this, working in terms of the amount of time that person actually has the person on the screen. And that's at 35 hours. It's averaged over 10 days. This averaged over grades 1 through 12.
Yeah. I guess my question is, I certainly don't doubt that the teachers are doing a great job and certainly appreciate that we're just starting. My question is more about the plan. And so how are we physically doing meeting that requirement? Are we live streaming in all the classes? Are we dividing the day in half and somehow we have the right number of hours? I guess I'm trying to understand, how is it that because it sounds like we have instances where, at least a few that have been mentioned on this call, and maybe they're just outliers where there doesn't seem to be, we don't seem to be meeting that requirement for live instruction. So what was the plan, and how do we know that that's working for us going forward?
So again, I do believe that was an outlier. We're talking about one particular school, right now that we're looking at in reference to this. And again, the goal was not to have cohort C not have any in-person or straightforward instruction online, synchronous. It was not supposed to be asynchronous, and that was something that's clearly laid out. So again, what we have to do is we have to go back, talk specifically to a particular school, And again, this has been laid out for principals, for teachers, how this gets played out with the asynchronous versus synchronous, the amount of time that they have set aside during their day. We looked at schedules from every single school, from elementary all the way through the high school.
So again, just because I'm just trying to, I don't know that I have a clear answer in my mind. Are we streaming? Is that how we're achieving this?
Yeah, they're streaming, and
they're
there's
live streaming the class that's happening in person.
Yep, there are components associated with streaming. There are components associated with small group instruction. There's components associated with one-on-one instruction that can go on at the same time as well. So not only kids in front of you, but also kids who are remote. So all of that qualifies as in person. What I can do is I can share with all of you kind of the DESE guidelines around this. I think I put it out there in one of my reports a week, or maybe it was a little longer than that. But
yeah, I wasn't really interested in the DESE guidelines per se. I was more interested in just how we were going to do it, because I think that's the question that we were asking before, and that's why I'm struggling with it. I'm sorry.
I just thanking you for your reiteration of your question, but I think the superintendent's answered to the best he can, and I just appreciate to move on.
So I'd like to ask my second point, which is, Linda Woodland mentioned the educational impact, and what is our plan to assess that? I didn't really hear an answer tonight, but I would say that we really need to have a very strong focus on what the educational impact of the past year has been. And as we're coming up on our budget planning session, and particularly recognizing that there may be some CARES funds available to us, how do we have some opportunities to start to address that, perhaps even as early as the summer? So I don't know what type of thinking or planning has gone into that. I would love to hear that, if not tonight, then at our next meeting. But it really needs to be a very, very important focus for us going forward, in my opinion.
Sure, I'd be happy to go through that with everybody. At the next meeting, because again, as we talk about this, we have a business finance meeting on Monday, next school committee on the 8th. We will be, we'll have more information around, FY22. There will be a budget hearing, a budget retreat, 2 weeks from that Monday. So that begins on 5:30. It's 5:30 to 7, but we really felt as though it was an important time to do this. Again, everything is a little different still because we do not know exactly how much we're going to get in funds, but any type of summer support that we can put out there. Again, what we have to, our number one issue, and it always comes down to this, is transportation. Because we're a regional district, it does make it very difficult for us to offer things up to kids. And if we don't provide transportation, then our hands get slapped by the state, because we're not doing what we need to do to provide an equitable education.
Thank you. And thank you, Member Dennis, for your questions. So we have 3 left in the chat. We'll go with them and we're going to move on. Member Kirschenbaum.
Hi, thank you. I had some major reservations about the high flex instructional plan when it comes to live streaming. And, I kind of reserved my hesitations, and I reserved my my questions to see, okay, let's watch this play out. It's being recommended by our consultant, so I'm going to value that perspective and that judgment. So we are 1 week into our high flex instructional program, and I guess this is a follow-up to Member Dennis's question, and also echoing concerns from Member Ayala and Woodland, that I would like to know what the pros and cons are to the impact on instruction and time with direct instruction. And I would also, realizing that live streaming for high school is a different beast than live streaming with elementary school students. And I would like to know if there are immediate staffing needs to address what needs to happen in the classroom, specifically for elementary school students, when when logistical things like potty breaks have to happen in a classroom. For example, the teacher is escorting them to a bathroom. Well, that means kids at home are being left, 20 minutes on a Google meeting without a direct instruction because the teacher is being taken out of the classroom so that she can provide or he can provide supervision at the bathroom for 20 minutes or so forth. So I'm just concerned about those impacts to instruction. That means that cohort, if the teacher is teaching a cohort A class that day, well, that's impacting students in cohort B as well as C, and possibly even in cohort D. So I would just love to hear some analysis on how we're meeting our instructional time and what the staffing needs are so that we can address those immediately. Do we need more people in the classroom so that the primary person who's delivering instruction doesn't have to be walking down the halls to supervise children? So that's my major question right now.
Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. And I'll just answer that last question. We are actively searching for full-time people to come into the buildings to help support us, because again, that's exactly what we're talking about. People who can bring kids to the bathroom so the teacher can remain in the classroom. The issue is, and I mentioned this already tonight, is that there aren't a lot of people out there who want to come into a school right now and become a paraprofessional or a support staff or a long-term substitute, even at a fairly decent amount of funds. I mean, we've increased our dollar amount by $50, so it's gone from 100 to 150 for those long-term substitutes, which is well above anything that we've ever touched before. But again, we're doing it because we're trying to get these people into the building. So we've offered this up to principals. Principals they're still having a tough time finding people who want to do this type of work. I know Jeff is spending a lot of time advertising, trying to bring people on board. And as I said earlier, I think that's one of the things we're going to continue to do, see if we can tap into some of our local colleges and universities to see whether or not we could, actually get some of those people to have a day or two where they could be in there.
If I might make a follow-up comment, Chair Weeks?
Very briefly, if you don't mind.
Please, thank you for the latitude. I appreciate that. With all due respect, we don't have weeks to get this rolling. We have hours. So, we have to do what we can to be responsive here. We've had all this time to come up with a plan.
And Laura, I can tell you, this went back weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks in terms of looking for people. So.
Thank you.
We're going to go Member Gustafson, Member Pantos, and we're going to close discussion after that.
A couple of my points have been made, but I still probably have 2 minutes. I'm sorry. The first thing is I do appreciate the attention to adding more detail to the dashboard. I have worked in healthcare in the past, and I think it is absolutely possible to do without giving away identity of who is affected. You can indicate how many students or how many faculty are affected, or even, as you said, Northborough, Southborough included athletes. I actually personally think that's helpful and relevant because we hear things in the community and we are the last ones to know. When I get 3 emails from people saying an athletic team was tested because they had a Halloween party or whatever the situation, but I don't hear it from the district, it would be helpful to know that information. So I don't think giving that level of detail away is illegal. Otherwise, other schools wouldn't be doing it. So I encourage you to add that. I'm hopeful and appreciate that you're moving in that direction. Second is that I would like to reiterate what I've said multiple times, that I was at our last meeting, I believe you said we would be getting an update from the consultant shortly. And I have requested at least twice a specific timeline looking backwards and forwards of what activities have been done since her presentation to us, what meetings you've had in general, what meetings are being planned, what steps are being implemented, and when. And I think that would be useful. We haven't had any update on her progress. I think you had mentioned we might be getting one tonight, and obviously other things came up. I don't think I misheard that. So I'd like to reiterate that even if it's not in a meeting, if we could have something in writing reflecting the progress that has been made and what is being planned moving forward to implement and do that work, I think that would be very helpful. I wanted to reiterate the CPAC concerns, and I will look forward to hearing their updates on that conversation. I'm glad there's a dialogue going on between them and Christine's office about some of the concerns. I have heard many of the same concerns directly, and I am glad that they're working on it. The final thing I wanted, I had two other things.
We're out of time. So
other people, no, I'm reiterating my questions because other people have talked longer. Their questions, I will reiterate them. They're equally important as the last two people that spoke. I would like to reiterate to please let us know what you need, whether it's bodies or finances to provide staffing that we need to meet these needs, and or if it's space in the buildings so we can hopefully move forward. And my final question was that Brendan's report was included and mentioned working with nurses, which I appreciate, but it didn't mention anything about social emotional learning and what's happening in those regards to support our students as they transition back to school. I have heard positive things in that area, but I was hoping to get more of an update on how that's going, if more staff is needed, how that's working, how our...
Thank you. I'll pass the mic to Brendan if he's on and he can answer that.
Thank you.
Are you with us tonight?
I'm here. Hi, good evening, everyone. Yeah, that just happened to be what I chose to update you all, given the timeliness of coming back. So, but yeah, point well taken. I'd be happy to report out on that.
I appreciate that. I have heard positive things, but I've also heard that the staff are working overtime to meet with all of their students, which is helpful, but I don't know if we're meeting needs or we need more resources again in those areas.
Thank you, Malia. Finally, Member Piantos.
Well, two things. First, I'm just looking for clarification or just a review of, did you say 16 permanent subs hired? What was the number on subs?
16, Mike.
And those are permanent positions?
Yeah, by permanent, I don't mean that they're staying on through next year. They're positions
At the end of this year.
Yep.
All right, that's fantastic. And I was wondering if you could make any sort of public comment, because some parents have been upset. Now, I understand that teachers might be remote for different reasons, whether it be that they're quarantining, whether it be that they were exposure or whatnot. But I do know of several parents that were told last minute that their teacher would be remote. Some were told it was because there was an exposure or because they just decided to go remote. I don't think there was a lot of information passed, or maybe enough information passed. So I was wondering if you could just put some sort of public comment for that.
So yeah, we had again, this is going to happen, and I've said this.
I understand.
Yeah, multiple times. We're gonna have staff, and we're gonna have classrooms that we have to close because we do not have teachers. Teachers are close contacts or they're positive. They have to stay home. They're quarantined, and we cannot get enough substitutes to cover, especially if we're trying to cover other places. In reference to people who might be teaching remotely permanently, that's something that's done through the HR office, and that's purely for health reasons, Mike. So that comes up when that shows up. That's something that we have to follow. We're obligated to follow that by law. So it's dependent on when it comes up to us.
Okay, I just wanted the public to hear it from you on record. That's all. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you all so much. Moving on tonight, next on our agenda, recommendations requiring action by the school committee, the acceptance of donation of school and office furniture from Unum of Worcester, Massachusetts, with an estimated value of $20,000. Is there a motion?
Moved. So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Dr. McCall, do you want to give us a synopsis of it?
Sure, I can. And again, Christine was a big part of this. And Chris, if you want to jump in, but it's an excellent donation. It's there's quite a bit of newer furniture. So different things that we have not had in our buildings in a while. So Chris.
Sure, thank you. Through a personal connection, we were put in touch with folks in Unum in the Worcester location, and we are in the process of securing just beautiful, absolutely beautiful conference tables, conference chairs that are on casters for rolling, that will be useful in many of our meeting rooms. We have a few sit-stand desks that we will be able to use in administrative offices. It's not really classroom furniture for the most part because it is coming from an office building. And we do have a number of two-drawer filing cabinets. So we are really excited about the delivery of this material and equipment, and then getting it out to our classrooms and to our offices to upgrade the furniture. We will then follow protocol and procedures and only release furniture that's not usable or make note of that so that folks in our respective towns have access to that furniture. So thank you very much to Unum and to those connections that were made, and to all of the people that are now working remotely from the office of Unum and in Worcester.
Thank you so much. Any questions or comments? Member Otmar?
Yeah, real quick. I mean, that's wonderful work to, again, be able to kind of have a public-private partnership kind of like this that we can benefit from this. Do we know where we're going to send these? I mean, I would hope that with at least some of this, we'd at least be able to push these down to the schools.
Yeah, absolutely.
For them,
So,
as opposed to the central office. So.
Oh, absolutely. However, central office is always last to get furniture. So, for example, our IT headroom, our IT office at the central office really is in dire need of some furniture. And so all of the furniture will be stored, and I am actually maintaining the spreadsheet of getting this furniture directly out to teachers, to classrooms, to conference rooms as soon as possible.
Thank you, and thanks again. Personally, I've worked with Unum. They're our corporate partner when I was at South High School, and they're just generous, wonderful people. So I'm so glad we're partnering with them as well.
Thank you.
Seeing no other hands, we'll take a roll call vote. Member Ayala?
Ayala, yes.
Bennett?
Yes.
Brown?
Brown, yes.
Dennis?
Dennis, yes.
Gustafson?
Yes.
Haber?
Haber, yes.
Kirschenbaum?
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Lavoy?
Lavoy, yes.
Thanks, Matt. Longbalil?
Longbalil, yes.
Mills?
Mills, yes.
Otmar?
Otmar, yes.
Pantos?
Pantos, yes.
Shapiro?
Shapiro, yes.
Silva?
Silva, yes.
Sullivan?
Sullivan, yes.
Williamson?
Williamson, yes.
Woodland?
Woodland, yes.
Young?
Young, yes.
And the chair votes yes, the motion passes. Next on the agenda tonight is unfinished business. There is no unfinished business on the report. Next on the report is the secretary's report. We did remove an executive session this evening, so we cannot discuss items A through F, which need discussion. I want to ensure that there is a session on our next agenda so that we can get those executive session minutes finished up. So we will go to G, which is the approval of the 1356 regular meeting minutes of the WRSD held on January 11th, 2021. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments on these minutes? Okay, seeing none. Ayala?
Ayala, yes.
Bennett?
Bennett, yes.
Brown?
Brown, yes.
Dennis?
Dennis, yes.
Gustafson?
Yes.
Haber?
Haber, yes.
Member Kirschenbaum?
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Member Lavoy?
Lavoy, yes.
Member Longbalil?
Yes.
Member Mills?
Mills, yes.
Member Otmar?
Otmar, yes.
Member Pantos?
Pantos, yes.
Member Shapiro?
Shapiro, yes.
Member Silva?
Silva, yes.
Member Sullivan?
Sullivan, yes.
Member Williamson?
Williamson, yes.
Member Woodland?
Woodland, yes.
And Member Young?
Young, yes.
Chair votes yes, and the motion passes. Next on our agenda tonight are the treasurer's reports and financial statements. Please direct those questions to Director Dede. Next on our agenda are committee reports. Management does meet on Wednesday, so I will have a robust report for you guys at our next meeting. Education Subcommittee, Chair Smith had to leave suddenly. She did send me an email stating that they have not met, and so have no update, but they will, they have a meeting scheduled, and I'll update you all shortly. Business Finance, Chair Dennis, please.
Sure. I think Ken had his hand for maybe a question under management, I suspect.
I did, yeah. I was going to save it for new business since the chair didn't recognize it, but
I'm sorry. This chat is
yeah.
very challenging to keep up with.
The question I had, and you can choose to pose it however you want, is I'm concerned that we haven't talked about a philosophical budget discussion, the regional agreement, and busing for quite some time. Regional agreement has to go to town warrants, so we're on a short deadline. So under management, could you give us some sense of the time frame for those three issues?
Yeah, the regional agreement is on the management agenda for Wednesday, so that's the first. Transportation, I believe we'll be ready to have that discussion on the 8th. Am I correct, Scott? I know we removed.
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay. And then regarding budgetary issues, I believe we are putting together a budget retreat for the beginning of February as well.
Okay.
I got it. Is that all, Ken? Before we go to Mike? All right, Mike, you have the floor.
Thank you. So Business and Finance met last on the 19th. We discussed the E&D certification at 1.4 million, which is about 200,000 above what it was previously. We discussed fiscal year 21. I think that most people know that we've received close to $2 million in reopening grant funding that the district has used mostly. We know that the budget passed. We know that funding from the state came in mostly flat, perhaps slightly less than was budgeted. There is a sizable surplus at this point in the year. There are some discussions about using revolving funds as we did from last year to this year to plan for next year. Right now, our discussions were around carrying forward 1.5 million. Given the sizable surplus that we're experiencing, we might encourage the administration to do more of that if possible. Finally, and I think as Ken alluded to before, we are a bit behind in the budget planning process. We're probably about 1 to 2 months behind where we typically would be. And so there's a lot of ground to make up. There's a lot of very heavy and serious questions for us to take up as we go into next year. So I don't want to undermine the time that I think that we're going to need to process what our priorities are, what this year has done, what the impact of that is, and how we put forward a budget that's going to meet the conditions for next year, and quite frankly, the expectations that I think that our member towns have. And so, looking forward to hearing more about budget planning in our next meeting a week from, I think it's a week from today.
Do we have questions? Oh, I believe there's a question for you, Mike. Member Woodland, please.
Hi, I was wondering if you might be able to answer if you talked about in your subcommittee about bringing back programs that had been cut in anticipation of a lower state resources. Is anything coming back that we could do this year with that surplus that you talked about, or was that discussed at all, priorities for like this year versus the future? I don't know if that's clear.
I think that there were some general questions that did surface, Linda, along those lines. The superintendent wasn't at our last meeting, and I think those were questions beyond Dan Deedy to be able to ask. I think it's probably a fair question for you to ask through the chair to administration tonight.
I would believe so.
Yeah, sure, Linda. So Yeah, again, what we're doing is we still need to assess. Yes, we have, a surplus based upon what Director Dede is forecasting. I think one of the things we need to do is continue to look at what our obligations are moving forward, and that is the most concerning. And the two main obligations are salaries and benefits, and then insurance. So you put those two together, and if we really start to play it out with a little more detail, we could be over a 3% increase before we do anything. That's without any new additional staff. That's just basically moving forward. So again, what I'm asking for from Director Dede is more details around what that information is, how it has been categorized. And now if we're able to either bring certain staff members back or a particular program, we will do that. We just need to be careful, because the one thing that we're concerned about is, even if we get COVID money, COVID money it can't be used for absolutely everything. So we still have to be careful of that. And we're not sure exactly how it's going to play out in terms of our overall pupil population. So when we look at our overall numbers and the reduction that we've had, as all school districts have had in the Commonwealth, again, we want to ensure that we're going to be able to fulfill our obligations for all the students and staff, starting in September as well. And I've not heard any more information pertaining to hold harmless.
So Linda, your question to me, if I understood it correctly, was, is there any discussion around hastening programs that were cut this year to bring back this year? Not to bring back next year, if I'm understanding that correctly, and you're nodding your head.
Yeah, that is correct. That was what I was wondering, if something can be brought back now.
Yeah, and we're actually looking at that, Linda, right now as we speak. So when we go through what we have, because again, one of the things that we're trying to do is determine how far down we can go in terms of saying, okay, we can bring people back and still feel comfortable about bringing those revolving accounts over into FY22, so that we have enough funds to help support anything we need to do moving forward.
Thank you for your question and for your update, Chair Dennis. Next on our agenda tonight is Legal Affairs, Chair Brown.
I had actually a question for Member Dennis. On the surplus, did you mention 1.5 million? Is that the figure?
No, 1.5 million is the target amount to bring forward in revolving accounts. The surplus now, as of today, probably is north of between $3 and $4 million.
Okay. Thank you. Legal Affairs has been pretty busy. Last week, we came to an agreement in mediation on the MOA hybrid with the WREA, and it was ratified by the WREA last week, and we will be going into executive session on February 8th and going over that, and then we will be voting on that. We'll also be voting on the WAA on their contract, also going into executive session, and we'll be voting on that in public. The paraprofessionals are meeting tomorrow to go over their MOA for hybrid, and then as soon as we get done with that, we'll be going into their regular contract, and the ABAPA is on Thursday for their regular contract.
Questions for legal? Okay, seeing none. Facilities and security, Chair Young, please.
Sure. We have not yet met this month, but jumping on getting a meeting organized pretty quickly to talk over all the stuff from last week and this week due to opening. So I'll have a report at the next meeting.
Any questions for facilities?
I have a question on the high school. Member Young, I sent you an email regarding the PA system at the high school. I guess a lot of classrooms, the PA does not work, and I got 2 emails from parents saying that their child had a hard time going from one class to the next because I guess the PA gets used a lot in navigating the kids to the next class. Can you look into that?
Yeah, I got your email and I'll definitely put it on the agenda at the next meeting.
Yes, and Scott, I can jump in on that as well. So that was something that they're working on, getting someone in there to fix it because it's a portion of the building. So they had that issue. They were also looking at an issue associated with, and it was 2 separate issues, but an issue associated with the strobes and the fire lights as well. So it's being rectified. There are only so many people out there that take care of systems like this, and it's a very expensive fix, but we've got to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Diversity, Chair Silva, please.
So let me just get out my notes. We met on January 14th and we had a great presentation from Director Keenan on stress management and tolerance. And I suggest that he also give the whole school committee that particular presentation. It really encouraged a lot of discussion and reflection on his presentation. We also started continuing a policy, but we stopped right as we were starting and decided to split up some of our duty on looking into this policy into 3 different areas, which each one of the members have assigned, have raised their hands and voluntarily took the job of going into detail of looking into DISI and the way they have done the policies and then bringing it back to us so we can have a productive meeting depending upon how our policies relate to what is out there in the state and some other schools. And then we'll come back to you once we have all that information. We are going to be meeting in the month of February. But I do suggest that we get that presentation to the whole school committee. It was an excellent presentation.
Awesome. Can we do that, Director Keenan?
Be happy to. It's pretty brief too, so we wouldn't be adding too much time.
It's brief, but it had a lot of discussion around it.
Yeah, and I should say it didn't end up being brief. We had a really good conversation around it too. But yeah, I'd be happy to.
Sounds great. Thank you guys both so much. Any questions for diversity?
Oh, one more thing I wanted to mention is that Director Keenan and I will be coming up with a kind of a generic email. I have gotten a lot of interest from our public and parents wanting to get involved in helping, with curriculum activities and whatnot that our goals are for this particular subcommittee. So I wanted to give everyone the same information. So we're going to come up with a generic email or something that we can put either on our website, and when people do contact us, that we're giving everyone the same information of where to listen to our recordings, where to what they can do to help in terms of the public when they want to help.
That's wonderful. That's really helpful, actually. Thank you. Next on our agenda tonight is audit. Member Mitchell isn't here. Member Young, do you have any updates?
Nope.
All right. No, we have no ad hoc subcommittees or building committees.
Did you skip me, Megan?
Yeah, I did. I didn't want to hear from you at all. Okay. I forgot the biggest portion of our meeting is coming next. Member Mills, let's do superintendent goals and evaluations. I actually have no idea how I subconsciously did that.
So just very briefly, I would direct folks to beginning on page 9 of the attachments from the superintendent's report. So the process-wise is that at the beginning of the year, he, along with the subcommittee, developed draft goals that the full school committee approved. There also goes along with indicators that we have chosen that he'll be evaluated on at the end of the year. So we'll be evaluating both indicators and goals in April. So we've asked that every report that we provide updates to goals, and that in the mid-cycle, which is this report, that he provide an update, sort of a middle of the year, although it's not really the middle of the year, from when the goals were approved, of how progress was being made. He shared this with members of the subcommittee this week. We individually gave feedback to him, mine mostly being around more thorough assessments, so that it's less what we've done and more how impactful it was. And then the opportunity today was really for members of the committee to provide their feedback on the progress towards goals and what they might like to see in anticipation of having the formal evaluation in April.
Thank you, Member Mills. So I think the best way to do this is to go to our hand system. So to Member Mills' point, you have the goals and you have the superintendent's update on what's been accomplished thus far. So your comments and or questions should be pointed to what you would like to see come the end of the cycle in order to see those goals fulfilled, or what may be missing. Does anybody have a comment or question? I believe. Let's see anybody. Okay. No comments or questions. Oh, you're good. As soon as you see me turn to the other monitor, that
No, I couldn't get my
I got
face
to the corner of this
come
eye. I
up.
was like, we're
I'm
back.
sorry. You know I have questions. I can email them too because some of them might be more lengthy, so I'll email some of them. But in general, I did have a question about it's sort of what Ken just said, actually. I know a lot of the things talked about things that have been done, but I found myself wanting more detail, which is what I say every year when we do our evaluations. That it says, we are reading this book. It doesn't say what we talked about. It says we are doing a survey. It doesn't talk about the vision that is informing that survey. There's no context provided. It just feels like a checklist to me and not so, I'm not really phrasing it well, but it feels like it's lacking some detail in my personal opinion. And I know it's the middle of the year and I know COVID has taken over all of our lives, or yours in particular, but that is one of my concerns, that particularly with the pressure of COVID, that does not negate having to work on all these other things and keep the district running in these other areas and meet our goals. And so I feel like there's sort of a tension there. I mean, I think you said this in your report, that COVID is your first priority, which it absolutely has to be, but all of this still needs to get done. It's still part of running the district. So I guess that's one of my questions. I had a specific question or comment, I guess, about the it was the district improvement plan and the book study and diversity. I did not have a chance to go back and double check this, but I think the paragraph in the update is exactly what you wrote in the end of the year last year about where you are in the book and you're having discussions about the first chapters of the book. It felt very similar. So I didn't know if you restarted that completely since last year, or if you have restarted.
It's a complete restart, Malaya.
Okay, so that was one question because it felt similar, so I guess it was. And the second is that I wondered, particularly with that goal, if it really isn't. I know you've talked with the diversity consulting group. I said this in the spring as well. I really feel in that goal is if perhaps it might be useful to involve someone else in leading some of those discussions to be most useful, because this is not you personally, but as a superintendent, you and your members of your leadership team you have your own biases are inclusive. They impact the way you view this. So the thought of you leading the discussions about the implicit bias over which a district that you're overseeing seems somewhat hard to wrap my mind around, doing that in a fruitful, productive, meaningful way, I guess. And that's not a personal critique. It is more of a process critique. And it is one that I know I read every page of the evaluation in the spring, and I'm not the only one that mentioned that in the spring. So I guess that's one concern. And I don't know if it's something that the diversity group could perhaps facilitate a discussion or two around, or if there's someone else. I know there's consultants that do that. It's a concern that perhaps we're meeting it on paper, but we're not really meeting it and working on it in a meaningful way. So those are my two main concerns.
Thank you, Malaya. I can tell you we had Brendan Keenan and I, Director Keenan and I, had the opportunity to meet with Deep, and we actually went through the process, and they actually put together a very substantial and thorough kind of analysis of how they might work with our district, a district our size, a district so complex in terms of grade levels, in terms of socioeconomics, diversity. We're becoming more of a diverse district every single year, which is fantastic. And I think that's one of the things as we kind of come to the table. We want to look at this and we want to be able to say, okay, this is something we want to focus on over the next 5 to 7 years. And when I had originally talked to them about that, and they're like, that's exactly what we need to do. This is a 5 to 7 year project. It's not something you're going to figure out by the end of the year or the end of next year or the end of the year after. It's a long-term project.
I appreciate that. So I guess perhaps putting some of that detail about in there rather than we're just reading a book would be
Sure,
helpful in
sure.
illustrating.
Thank you.
So that's my feedback on that question. So as I said, if I think of others, I will send them to the committee through the committee chair.
Wonderful. Thank you. We have school committee reports today. Anybody? Member Woodland, I see a old school hand.
I know sometimes it's just faster. I have a report from the ACC that they are starting actually face-to-face. The inclusion rooms are starting full in person at this point. And they're working towards some of the space issues, and we'll be looking at the school improvement plan in the future.
Thank you. Member Williamson?
Yep, I had an opportunity to speak with Principal Norton and Principal Lebrecht just to get a sense of how their first week had gone, and their reports were very, very similar. They were really impressed with how great the kids were coming into the building, how great they did following the protocols and the safety and all of that. They really wanted to both give kudos to the staff who did an absolutely outstanding job with something so complex, and also to the families, in being really flexible and understanding and supportive in the first week.
Thank you, Member Williamson. Any other school committee reports? School council reports? Okay. Seeing none, we have a second public hearing, and I just refreshed my spreadsheet. I do believe I have a couple more that came through during the meeting. All right. Hold on 1 second. All right, I have 2 that came in during the meeting. The first from Dutch K. Velez on 78 Campbell Street in Rutland. They state, hello, members of the school committee and whoever might be watching this live stream. My name is Dutch and I'm a senior at the high school. To say the least, the hybrid switch has been very difficult. I'm in cohort C, and as the group implies, we seem to be the last in line for support during transition, A, B, then C. Support from administration is dwindling. Remote students seem to be an afterthought to the demands of those who want their children to be in person. Those that can do the most to support the remote students are choosing not to listen, and so the brunt of the weight is laid on the teachers. Many of my teachers are left with the decision to focus in person or remote because of the nature of the classroom they teach. They can't do both at once effectively. I ask that more solutions and discussions go out to the remote students and teachers. Too many tabs being open or bad internet connections are not the cause of bias towards in-person students. We also hear from Teresa McAndrew at 70 Sherwood Drive in Holden. Hi all. A big thank you for doing your jobs and keeping the district afloat. I know it can't be easy. I'm in cohort C for the high school as a senior due to health issues and just a general wanting to be at home. My experience to transition to hybrid has been what I expected, a mess. Many teachers and my peers had told me and my peers that if we don't have the right wipes to sanitize desks, many teachers personally seem to be confused by the schedule and have not been showing us morning announcements. I'm not saying that this is all their fault. However, I do think cohort C is slipping through the cracks. Personally, I'm disappointed how administration has been handling the situation. I don't think there's a way to properly sanitize and clean the school, especially if pre-COVID there wasn't enough soap or paper towels or even toilet paper. It's disappointing to me that not enough information about my own cohort was presented to me, and I've read every email and watched every committee meeting that the district has sent out. It's also disappointing that our superintendent doesn't pay attention to all the cohorts. I understand time is stressful, but these are lives and people being mentioned. I guess all in all, I'd like to see more support for the high school. I've seen some classrooms from my teachers that cannot distance a desk 6 feet, and some rooms that don't have proper flow. One of my classes couldn't meet this week because of technology issues. What's being done to guarantee that every classroom is safe? How is this being properly relayed to everyone in the district? I feel like there's a large disconnect to students and staff, and hoping this can be mended. Actually, as I was speaking, a third came in, so I want to make sure I get to this one as well. This comes from Daniel Hebb at 2 Davis Way in Holden. Under the current system, cohort C is treated like an afterthought, both by some teachers and the school itself. Some teachers focus all their efforts on the students in front of them, leaving more than 2/3 of the class to their own devices. Other teachers attempt to do their job and teach, but the school's building is insufficient and creates chaos. When the teacher can't maintain a stable internet connection for the Google Meet, how are we supposed to learn? Administration isn't offering help with confusing last-minute instructions. Parents or students don't have an idea of what's going on all the time. Things seem rushed. The students at home are forced to teach themselves in an increasingly taxing environment. Switching to hybrid was supposed to improve the mental health of students, but when half the students are more stressed and mentally drained, perhaps it's time that the system finally takes them into consideration as well. Thank you. Next tonight, new business. As has been a practice, let's vocalize that, but then also email me so that I can get those specifically to the superintendent by Friday at the latest. So I believe we've got 3. So verbalize it, but also email it to me, please. So Member Gustafson.
Yes, related to discussion of the superintendent goals and the budget and the superintendent's report. In several places, things were tied back to the strategic plan, which ends in June. This is the 5th year of the 5-year strategic plan. So I have a concern and a process question about how the district is planning to move forward basing these other decisions on a strategic plan for next school year, which technically expires in June. So I guess I would like an update on that process and
okay. So that's more
forward.
Information than something to
No, it's a point of new business for the future to discuss the strategic planning process because it expires the end of June and we're asked to make decisions tied back to that in the budget, which is coming up quickly. Okay. And I would like to know the planning process for that or how they plan to do that. So it is a request for process and discussing that.
Okay, please.
Thank you.
Member Haber.
My question goes back to something I believe Member Lavoie mentioned a few weeks ago, and so maybe that's his plan to speak to as well, but just quickly, as far as educational impact is concerned, I believe Member Lavoie asked for grades for this year and the previous 2 years as a comparison. We still haven't seen that information. And as much as this is just we need to see that information, I'd like to see it as an agenda item so that we can plan for remediation during the summer.
Excellent. Just send that to me via email. Member Lavoie.
I appreciate that, Member Haber, and I just want to follow up on that. I've made a request 4 times now, 4 times. And I've asked for it to be on the agenda for the state of education. I've also supplied yourself, Chair Weeks, Dr. McCall, with 5 bullet points of that quantitative data on the state of education. The first request was requesting for data after the conclusion of the first semester. We've now completed a second one. So I would expect to be able to see that data and us as a deliberating body to see what the educational impact is. I think we're at a point where the response has been that would be a report, not an agenda item. I would request again that the state of education with data behind it be an agenda item. If you're not going to provide it, just say it. But for me to have to follow up now 4 times, we're going to be in February, and the original request, I believe, was made in October.
That is correct. Thank you for the reminder. Okay. Any other new business, guys? Okay. Seeing none, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved in second. Member Ayala?
Ayala, yes.
Bennett?
Bennett, yes.
Brown?
Brown, yes.
Dennis?
Dennis, yes.
Gustafson?
Yes.
Haber?
Haber, yes.
Kirschenbaum?
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Lavoie?
Lavoie, yes.
Anguilla?
Yes.
Mills?
Mills, yes.
Otmar?
Otmar, yes.
Santos?
Santos, yes.
Shapiro?
Shapiro, yes.
Silva?
Silva, yes.
Sullivan?
Sullivan, yes.
Williamson?
Williamson, yes.
Woodland,
Woodland, yes.
Young.
Young, yes.
Chair votes yes. This meeting is adjourned. Have a nice evening, everybody.